This week on Fish Ed, Jon turns the tables on sunny day walleye. Don't miss a trick of his fast-paced system for serving up temptation the fish can't refuse.
There we go. Watch this. There he goes. That quick. It's automatic. I mean, when you see fish like this, it's just automatic. There were 4 of them there. They were all together and they're feeding. You could tell they're feeding because they were on the top edge. They're where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be on that top edge. This is just a eater-sized walleye to start, nice fish. But here's the thing, they were right where most people wouldn't expect them to be. Right up on the top edge, just sitting there, they're eating, and you don't know it, but they're eating. And the big thing is understanding how they're eating though. They're not being driven by the wind now. Now they're not being pushed and chasing horizontally, because without the wind, it's not moving the bait. So all of a sudden the world changes down there and these fish start feeding differently. And walleyes like this one right here, he'll react very differently as well to the bait you send down there. Look at that, great eater size fish to start, I suppose 15 inches. We'll chuck him back. We'll go find a couple more of them. That's a good way to start right there. It's just automatic in these scenarios when you look at what we're doing today. And it's something most anglers would not even think about in this scenario. Fishing the top, putting a float down there, putting something down there that hangs right in front of them, not moving horizontally, but getting them to react vertically. That's what we'll talk about. It's all based on eyesight. Let's move around, see if we can find a couple more of them here. There we go. A couple of them. We'll get these. That didn't take but a second, huh? Got him. Man, this is literally, I guess first off, float fishing, bobber fishing, call it what you like. This is some of my funnest fishing. And I'll tell you why. Man, I love Lindy rigging. I love fishing in any different way. Heck, I like pulling crankbaits, nice walleye. But let me tell you something about bobber fishing. I love the visual of it. And you know, so often I think people think of float fishing. That fish got off right there. Okay, this was really cool. That fish got off right there and he swam into the net. He didn't get turned around and go the other way. He swam right into my net. That's about as lucky as you're going to get. Look at that. How cool is that? But float fishing, it is just so fun because it's visual, you know, and I'll tell you, when so often we think about float fishing being for kids or for beginners or whatever it may be, I will tell you that over the years, some of my greatest tournament finishes and some of the most fun I ever had with fishing in general happened with a bobber. And it's because it is probably the most effective technique there is in fishing when it comes to keeping a bait in an exact spot where a fish wants to hit it. Because I can suspend that bait right where the fish is. I can put it at the right depth. I can put it right over the top of them, and I can keep it there. Now, if I were fishing horizontally, like most of these guys today, they're all pulling past them. Okay, what we're doing is we're dropping it on top of them. And because we're float fishing, I just idled the boat away a little bit, and what happens is this bait stays right above their head. And if you can keep the bait right above their head, right at that spot where the fish is, you're gonna get more bites. There he goes. Where my slack is. That's one nice thing about these big tall rods. these long rods, when you gotta get slack out, your hook set's gonna be longer. And right there, I had a lot of slack out. Wasn't quite sure when I set the hook, but I could feel it at the top of my hook set that I'd pulled through the slack and still had enough backbone to get this fish hooked up. It's another great eye. Man, float fishing right in the middle of summer. It's just a ball. Yeah, another great fish. Let's get this guy in the boat and I'll show you exactly what I'm using and explain to you why I'm using it, because if you watch Fish Ed, you've heard me talk a lot about float fishing over the years. I think it's probably the most underutilized technique there is in fishing for walleyes. And it's not just a this body of water or that body of water presentation. I mean, it catches fish everywhere. Walleyes like that one right there, I mean, they can't resist bait suspended up above them, but there's a couple tricks. Number one, I'm always using a jig. Pretty much always. Very seldom do I ever use a bare hook. I see most people using a bare hook, but here's what happens. If you're using a bare hook, the hook comes down like that, and that leech ends up getting tired, and he's just hanging. Well, if you watch a leech swim by you in the water, they're swimming horizontally. Well, what this jig does is it hangs horizontal, and it helps that leech stay out there horizontal. The other thing it's doing is it's giving us some color down there. Remember, we're looking at a situation where they're feeding on visual, their visual sense right now. So this adds that little bit of color, little bit of something, and then it also gives it that little bit of wave action, because as that weight's coming up and down, it's letting this whole thing do a little bit of this, okay? And yet that leech has the ability to swim back behind it. Phil Pro Series float, the best. This is made from the best balsa you can get, and then it's also got a brass grommet in the top, so the line just rips right through it. Here's the deal, I'm gonna bait up right now because there's fish underneath the boat that I'm looking at while we're talking. But that balsa float, what's so important about that is it detects every little bite, and on top of detecting every little bite, the fish just don't feel it, because balsa is so neutrally buoyant that they just don't feel what's happening. And if you can get away with that, if they don't feel you, man, I'll tell you what, you can just sit and catch fish. I mean, it's a simple deal. When you look at how I'm doing this, like I was saying earlier, I'm fishing high. I'm fishing way up above these fish. I don't want to be right down there at their level. I'm trying to get them to move. And if you can get them to move, you can usually get fish to bite. Great setup, easy. Easy, easy, easy. There he goes. Had a feeling I was going to get one of these. One thing about days like today is these fish aren't moving around a lot horizontally. He's not as good as I thought he was. He's a good fish, don't get me wrong, but these fish just aren't moving as much horizontally. So when you see them, they'll usually stay put. What they'll do is they'll move vertical, and that's what we're making them do today, is making them feed based on their sight and making them move vertical. Great fish. Look at that. What an awesome way to wrap up a day. This has been fast and furious. I mean, this is some easy fishing if you're willing to kind of buck the trend. I don't know that I have seen another boat today, and there's been some boats come and go that have come in here and fished like we have, and most of them have come and gone, because when they came in, we watched them and they just weren't catching fish because they were pulling past these fish. And we decided to sit on them and give them that chance to bite. You know what? This is the way to do it on a lot of days like today. And most anglers overlook this. So the next time you're faced with this type of situation where you're gonna have flat, calm, you're gonna have hot, you're gonna have high skies, don't leave the bobbers at home. Bring those bobber rods, bring your floats, bring some small 16th ounce Lindy live bait jigs. And let me tell you something, you can sit and catch fish that other guys aren't gonna catch today. That's a pretty awesome day right there. Man, that's fun. I love bobber fishing. Nothing like watching a float go down.